Lucas Wall, followed by Chris Mergerson.
The freedoms of speech and of the press are among the great bulwarks of liberty and can never be restrained except by despotic governments. This quotation comes from Article 1, Section 12 of the Virginia Constitution, which our First Amendment was written directly from. The ideals written by our founding fathers are not what Fairfax County school students are being taught. By keeping the vote totals of student government elections secret in all 23 high schools in this county, students are being taught that freedom of the press and accountability of government officials is not important in high schools. James Madison wrote that a popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power that knowledge gives. It is amazing that here in the shadow of our nation's capital, the center of democracy in this world, where I can drive to the homes of George Washington and George Mason within half an hour, that students in Fairfax County schools are being taught lessons that completely go against the lessons and the teachings of our founding fathers. The press serves a vital role in keeping government honest, as well as its role of informing the public. High school journalists should have the opportunity to report fully on student government elections, just as professional journalists are able to fully report on general elections. Centreville High School does everything possible to simulate a general election. The only phase missing from elections at Centreville and other high schools in this county is the release of the vote totals to the public. The student government advisors are free to declare who they want as the winners, since there is no accountability for the results. The student newspaper is denied vital information for its coverage of the elections, and the student body is denied the ability to compare how individual candidates did in the election. It is ironic that all seniors are taught in government class the importance of democracy, freedom of the press, and free access to information. Yet when students try to put what they have been taught in class into action, they are shown by school officials that these teachings are really not important. Title 24.2 of the Code of Virginia requires that for general elections, the certified vote totals for each candidate be released immediately after being determined. This policy should also apply to elections in our high schools. I am Lucas Wall, former editor-in-chief of the Centreville Sentinel, and one of our graduate staff columnists, Chris Mergerson, and the new editor-in-chief, Michael Cullen, will follow me and present further information on this topic. Thank you.
One moment, please, Mr. Mergerson. School Board Member Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lucas, you have provided our students a wonderful lesson in civics and in our courts, and I must commend you very highly for standing up for what you believe. You make me proud to represent Sully. That the courts may have disagreed with you, that administration may have disagreed with you, to me doesn't much matter. What matters is that you show that in Centreville we have students who are willing to stand up, to take on all comers, to lose, but to come back again. Thank you, Lucas.
Members of the school board, after the court hearing regarding Centreville High School, numerous letters to the editors and commentaries appeared in many publications across the state. Many supporting the Centreville Sentinel, about 11, to 4 supporting Centreville High School. For example, John Ellsroth from Dunloren wrote to the Fairfax Journal, on the anniversary of VE Day, we should remember that we have struggled long and hard to have free and open elections. To discover high school students being taught that secret elections are acceptable is very disturbing. If the purpose of school elections is to provide a real lesson, then our local educators have completely missed the point. An editorial in the Charlottesville Daily Progress stated that, who would have not expected that vote totals would have been made public. Publication of election results, sometimes including minute breakdowns of voting trends, is a common and well-accepted practice. Brad Jenkins, a senior at Centreville High School, wrote to the Centerview, "High school is a microcosm of the real world, and being such, it should teach the lessons of the real world. Loss and defeat would be handled better later in life if these facts of life were part of the high school experience." And very interesting, the Roanoke Times and World News wrote, "What an awful insult to high school kids to portray them as tender-headed, thumb-sucking, gritless wimps. And what a crummy lesson in civics and democracy. All kids experience defeat at one time or another. They have to learn to deal with it and to learn from it." Now that you, the members of the school board, have heard from the citizens of Virginia, let me offer you two opinions from the Supreme Court that stress just how important public schools are in preparing students to live in a democratic society. In the 1954 case, Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court wrote that, quote, "Public education is perhaps the most important function of state and local governments. It forms the basic foundation of good citizenship and serves vital national interest in preparing the nation's youth for life in our increasingly complex society and for the duties of citizenship in our democratic republic." The court's opinion in the 1979 case, Ambach versus Norwich, stated that, quote, "The public school conveys to our young the information and tools required not merely to survive in, but to contribute to civilized society. It also inculcates in tomorrow's leaders the fundamental values necessary to the maintenance of a democratic political system. The county policy of not releasing vote totals of student government elections in high schools is not only contrary to the beliefs of our founding fathers, but of the Supreme Court's belief that public schools should be teaching students to live in a democratic society and not in some far-off fantasy dream world. The school board must take the responsibility to ensure the proper teaching of democratic principles in our high schools by requiring the release of vote totals in high school elections." Thank you.
Michael Cullen will be followed by Kathy Davis.
The reason that we came here tonight is to give you the opportunity to set the right policy. We want the school board to stand by the principles set out by our founding fathers. We want the school board to show its support of student journalists' right to access information crucial to a story, and to make a statement that the school board supports democratic elections in our high schools. The school board has the chance to stand up for democracy. Why should we have to ask the court to rule in favor of freedom of press or freedom of information? The school board is the governmental body that should set such policy in Fairfax County, not the courts. The issue here is clear. Students are taught how important it is to hold open elections, and yet vote totals in the county high schools are calculated by SGA advisors and held secret by those individuals. The reason claimed by school officials for withholding the vote totals are that losing students would be needlessly embarrassed and that the publishing totals may discourage some students from seeking office. And if the students are so insecure about having their vote totals printed, what's going to happen if they have to speak in front of a class or present ideas to the school officials or deal with criticism? The school benefits when insecure students do not seek office. Clearly, the public's right to know outweighs the individual's right to privacy in this case. If a student decides to seek school office, they are waiving any expectation of privacy. After hearing about our case, we received phone calls and letters from many other high school newspapers in the county, all of them supporting our efforts. Many editors told us that they had never thought about asking for the vote totals of their school's elections and said that if we were successful in court, they would request their totals. So the current policy of keeping vote totals secret does not only affect the students at Centreville, but all Fairfax County high school students. We ask the school board stand for freedom of press and access to information by adopting the following policy. All high school student government elections shall be run by appointed student government members, supervised by a student government advisor. The qualifications for running for office shall be set by each school. All steps shall be taken to simulate general elections. The complete results of these elections shall be made available to any individual requesting this information immediately after the vote totals have been tallied. We are giving you the chance to make the right decision. Please take it, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Warden?
I'd just like to say to the members of the Sentinel that are here tonight, I think you're clearly in the right. I wish you all the best of luck in the appellate courts. And as a student, and as a student who has sought student government elections, student government positions rather, I just like to say that it offends me as a person for someone else to think that my fragile ego or that of my peers would need to be coddled by not publishing election results. I think in this free country of ours, it's clearly the wrong message to send. And I think two key points weren't mentioned in that. First of all, the election results. There was a promise made to disclose the election results to the newspaper before the election. Candidates were informed of this, and finally, the newspaper simply wanted the jurisdiction, the power to decide whether or not to publish the election results. So again, I wish you all the best of luck in the appellate courts, and I hope you win.
Kathy Davis, followed by Kenton Patty.